like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Okay, so you've probably seen all the headlines about Jay-Z, right?
Right.
But we're going to unpack something even more interesting today.
Okay.
It's about Rymir Satterthwaite and his claim that Jay-Z is his father.
Wow.
Which he's been saying for over a decade now, and this all kind of resurfaced amidst another serious allegation against the rapper, which we won't get into here. But it just adds a whole other dimension to this whole deep dive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going to explore this paternity claim, what Satterthwaite is saying now, and how Jay-Z is reacting or not reacting to all of it.
Okay.
There are legal battles, Wanda's side of the story, and some interesting contradictions in how Jay-Z is responding to everything.
Well, what's so fascinating is that Satterthwaite is reasserting his claim just as Jay-Z is facing these other accusations, which he very publicly denied.
Right. It really makes you wonder about the timing.
Yeah.
So to really understand this, we need to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
This goes all the way back to 1992 when Wanda Rymir's mother says she had a relationship with Jay-Z. She says she became pregnant and Rymir was born later that year.
Okay.
Now fast forward to 2010, 2 years after Jay-Z and Beyonce married.
Right.
And that's when Satterthwaite first filed lawsuits demanding a paternity test.
And that's where all the legal complexities come into play because there are statutes of limitations for paternity suits.
Right.
Which means there's a time limit on when you can legally file a claim.
Okay.
These statutes vary by state.
Yeah.
And it's possible that Jay-Z's legal team argued that the time frame had already passed for Satterthwaite.
So if we're talking legal timelines, what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
Can you break down statutes of limitations for us, like in plain English?
Sure. Basically, imagine it like a deadline.
Good.
The law says you have a certain amount of time to file a lawsuit, and if you miss that deadline, you're out of luck.
Gotcha.
With paternity cases, it gets kind of tricky because the clock starts ticking at different points depending on the state and the circumstances. Sometimes it's from the child's birth. Sometimes it's when the alleged father's paternity is questioned.
Okay, so in this case, if the clock started at Rymir's birth in 1992,
Yes.
by the time he filed the suit in 2010, he could have been way past the deadline depending on where the case was filed.
Exactly. And that's why legal strategy in these cases can be so crucial.
Yeah.
Jay-Z's legal team likely knew those deadlines inside and out and may have used them to their advantage.
And it sounds like Satterthwaite has hit a few roadblocks.
Yeah.
He claims Jay-Z's legal team has been actively blocking paternity tests,
Oh, wow.
even alleging they used legal tactics to avoid it after a Pennsylvania court ruled against him.
That's another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
There are legal maneuvers that can be used to delay or even prevent paternity tests,
Right.
especially if there are arguments about jurisdiction or the validity of the claim.
So it's not just a matter of, hey, let's take a DNA test and settle this.
Right.
It becomes this whole legal chess match.
Absolutely. And when you have someone like Jay-Z with vast resources and a top-notch legal team,
Yeah.
it can make things even more difficult for the other side.
Well, and it's interesting because Rymir has explicitly said this isn't about money or fame for him.
Okay.
He was quoted saying, this is not about greed or spectacle. It's about uncovering the truth and ensuring all parties are held accountable. So it seems like he's really focused on getting recognition and acknowledgement.
It's a powerful statement that really highlights the human element at the core of this legal battle. For Satterthwaite, it goes beyond simply proving paternity through a DNA test.
Right.
He's seeking a sense of identity and belonging and wants someone to be held responsible for what he believes are their actions.
But then you look at how Jay-Z has responded, or rather hasn't responded.
Right.
He issued this lengthy statement denying the other allegations, expressing concern for his daughter Blue Ivy, saying he mourns another loss of innocence. But when it comes to Satterthwaite, there's a complete silence.
It is a striking contrast, isn't it? Yeah.
You see Jay-Z engaging directly with one set of allegations while remaining completely silent on the other.
Yeah.
It's interesting because legally, there could be very good reasons for that.
Okay.
Paternity cases can be incredibly sensitive, and lawyers often advise against making public statements that could be used in court.
So while it may make sense legally from an ethical and emotional standpoint, it definitely makes you wonder, right?
Exactly, and Satterthwaite himself has called this out.
Oh, really?
He said, despite my efforts, Mr. Carter has never once written a letter to me to address these claims, whether to deny or acknowledge paternity or to address why his attorneys committed this fraud.
Wow.
You can hear the frustration in his words, the feeling of being ignored and unheard.
You can definitely sense that he feels like he's up against this massive wall of silence.
And that speaks to a larger issue often present in legal battles, especially when one party has significantly more resources than the other.
Right.
It makes you question who gets to define truth and accountability in situations like this.
That is the question, isn't it?
That is the question.
It is. It really makes you think about how we define truth when you have these conflicting accounts, especially when there's such a power imbalance.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole question of accountability. What does that even look like in a case like this?
It's so multi-layered. We've got legal maneuvering personal stories, and then this ethical dimension about what responsibility means.
And how society views those responsibilities, especially for a public figure like Jay-Z.
Right, because it's not just about potential biological ties, it's about how these claims impact Jay-Z's carefully crafted public image. He's this global icon, a symbol of success, and family values these allegations regardless of whether they're true or not. Definitely challenge that image.
Absolutely. And that brings us to some of the more intriguing details of the story that we haven't even gotten into yet. For example, you have Wanda's claim that she conceived Rymir with Jay-Z when she was only 16 years old.
Whoa, that definitely adds another layer to this whole thing. We're talking about consent age differences and how all of that fits into the narrative. It really complicates the situation, doesn't it?
It does. Legally, it could raise questions about whether the statute of limitations even applies in such a case. Ethically, it adds a whole other dimension to the power dynamic between Wanda and Jay-Z at the time.
I'm starting to see how this isn't just a he said, she said situation. It's a web of interconnected events and perspectives.
Exactly. And then you have the timing of Satterthwaite's lawsuits filed just 2 years after Jay-Z and Beyonce got married. You can't help but wonder if that was a strategic move, maybe to force the issue into the public eye.
Yeah, it's hard not to think about the potential impact on that marriage, on their public image as a couple.
And it raises questions about motivation. Was Satterthwaite seeking recognition from a father figure, or was there an element of trying to disrupt Jay-Z's new life?
It's tricky because we can speculate all day long, but ultimately only Satterthwaite knows his true intentions. But it definitely adds fuel to the fire of public speculation.
Without a doubt. And that's the challenge with a story like this. You have the legal battles happening behind closed doors, and then you have this parallel narrative playing out in the court of public opinion. It's hard to separate the two.
So where does that leave us? How do we even begin to reconcile these competing narratives and get closer to the truth?
That's the million-dollar question. I don't think there's one single answer, one magic bullet, but I think it starts with recognizing the humanity of everyone involved. Jay-Z, Satterthwaite, Wanda, they all have their own stories, their own truths, and their own pain.
That's such an important reminder because it's easy to get caught up in the legal back and forth and forget that there are real people with real emotions at the heart of this.
Exactly. We're not just talking about abstract legal principles or celebrity gossip here. We're talking about people's lives, their identities, their families.
For our listener who's following this whole saga, what do you think is the most crucial thing for them to keep in mind?
I think it's vital to remember that this isn't just a black and white situation. There are shades of gray, complexities and perspectives that we may never fully understand. It's a reminder to approach this story, and any story for that matter, with a sense of nuance and compassion.
And an open mind, because new information could come out at any moment and change everything we think we know.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this case so captivating, so thought-provoking. It's a constant reminder that truth can be elusive, and sometimes there are more questions than answers.
So we've gone through the timeline, the legal strategies, the personal statements, and the impact on public image. But at the end of the day, what does it all mean? What's the takeaway for you?
I think the takeaway is this story goes beyond a simple paternity dispute. It's about our basic human desires for connection, recognition, and belonging. And it forces us to confront some really uncomfortable questions about how we define family responsibility and truth in a world where those concepts are constantly evolving.
That's deep. It's about more than just a DNA test. It's about the human condition itself.
Precisely. And it's a story that's likely to continue unfolding, so it's worth keeping an eye on how it all plays out.
It really makes you think about how these kinds of situations play out, especially for someone in the public eye like Jay-Z.
Yeah.
We're talking about real people's lives being impacted by these claims and counterclaims.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that question of accountability we touched on earlier.
Right.
What does that actually look like in a situation like this?
Yeah.
Is it a public acknowledgement, financial support, or something more intangible like an apology or a private conversation?
And how do you even begin to measure something like that? What would true accountability feel like for Satterthwaite, for Wanda, even for Jay-Z himself?
That's a tough one, and I think it's further complicated by the fact that even if a paternity test were to happen and confirm a biological connection,
Right.
it wouldn't automatically resolve all the emotional complexities at play.
Right. It's not like a DNA test is some magic solution that suddenly makes everything okay.
No.
It could actually open up even more questions and challenges.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It could create a whole new set of dynamics within both families.
Right.
And it brings up that idea of family being both a biological and a social construct, something we touched on earlier.
Right, because on one hand, you have Jay-Z's existing family with Beyonce and their children, a very public and well-documented family unit.
Right.
And then you have this potential claim from Satterthwaite that, if true, could disrupt that narrative.
It raises a lot of questions about what we owe to one another, not just legally, but ethically and emotionally. What does it mean to be a father, a son? What responsibilities come with those roles, and how do we navigate those responsibilities when there are conflicting claims and complex histories involved?
It's like this intricate web of relationships and obligations, and it's hard to know where one thread ends and another begins.
And it's easy to get caught up in the legal aspects and the public spectacle, but at the end of the day, this is about real human connections and the very essence of what it means to be a family.
So for our listener who's been following along with this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you'd want them to walk away with?
I'd say the most important thing to remember is that this isn't just a celebrity gossip story. It's a story about our universal human desire for connection, for belonging, for knowing where we come from. And it's a story that challenges us to think critically about our own definitions of family responsibility and truth.
It's a powerful reminder that there are always multiple sides to every story, and that the most important truths are often the hardest to define. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Hopefully it's given you something to think about, maybe even spark some conversations of your own. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deeper into the stories that matter.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're Bobby doll.